Well, greetings YouTube. I'm going to be trying something a little different with Prometheus here, in that this is not the review. I've actually already done the review. It's posted up on the site or on the channel already. So if you're looking for a general review of the movie, well, I highly recommend it. I really enjoyed it. If you want a little bit more detail, it's only about a 10-minute long review. Check it out on my channel, or it's probably up in the sidebar as well. No, what this is going to be a little bit more of an in-depth discussion about Prometheus, and I think from now on the channel this is how I'm going to try to work it with most films. Do a short review, and then if I deem the film worthy enough, the more longer discussions. So without further ado, Prometheus. Before I get started with that, I'm going to have to give, this is going to be a major spoiler-filled discussion. Spoiler alerts in full effect. I'm going to be, if you haven't seen the movie, I highly recommend you stop now, check out my review, go see the film, because I'm going to be talking about a lot of spoilers here. In fact, the first thing I'm going to be talking about is a major spoiler for the end of the movie. So, you've been warned. So, about the proto-alien. Yeah. There isn't any question at this point whether this is tied into the Alien franchise or not. No, at the end of the film we see some sort of xenomorph pop out of that engineer, as we're now calling them. A lot of people are going to... Actually, a lot of people are not talking about that, because for one thing, you figure Aliens fans would be, because it's a new type of xenomorph that we haven't seen before. So you figure they'd be, oh my god, there's a new xenomorph, finally the one thing I've been asking for in every single Alien movie. And now, for some reason, nobody's talking about it, even though it's at the end of the film. I don't know why. Maybe because it came out of a giant squid facehugger. Which little baby Cthulhu made it. Yeah. It's interesting in that there's certainly some things that are different about it. It doesn't have those little vent things on the back, kind of like the alien from Alien 3. And I guess scale is a little hard to tell, because it was only that one quick scene, so I'm not sure if it's the size of a more human size or the full, like, big, huge size of a space jockey / engineer. I was kind of at least happy to see one. At least it adds a little bit more to the mythos. Maybe, I mean, within the kind of larger mythos, and if we were to use a Star Wars term, the expanded universe, i.e., the stuff from the books and comics, it's heavily implied that the aliens always had been kind of like designed to wipe out species, that they weren't naturally evolved. So that kind of all fits. And that another thing is that they adapt based on the host organism. So perhaps all aliens that come from space jockeys look like that. Quite possibly. Speaking of the Cthulhu creature, it's kind of weird how this... What is this stuff, and what does this black oil do? I mean, again, part of the point of the movie is to kind of not answer questions and to leave you guessing, what? Why? Wait. It's a movie that wants to make you talk about it afterwards, and for the most part, it answers some of them. And you get a general idea what the black oil is supposed to be. It's actually like kind of like the black oil from X-Files. You just kind of, is it just a mutation thing, or does it have some sort of set pattern? And I would have to say there must be some sort of pattern ingrained within this stuff, because we see in the kind of vase chamber, the chamber with that big giant human head in it, they go up on the wall and they see a alien looking form. Now, whether that is an alien that's kind of like been developed, put up, and then they kind of put it up on the wall is one thing, or it was also located, interestingly enough, it looked like there was some sort of control panel right near that alien. Could it be that if they laid those eggs out and then they hit that button, whether those are the vases then turn into eggs? I think it's an interesting idea that maybe this is, the black oil can do a lot of things, and they can just start turning them right into eggs, because it would make sense. The alien in the wall's right there. There's a big button. It kind of makes a lot of sense that if they just wanted to make direct eggs, you'd hit that button. It works. Which also reminds me, another possibility is that that alien that we saw pop out is a queen. It's a possibility. Everyone's kind of questioning, how do queens start off when they're not a chest burster? But then again, we've kind of saw. Well, a lot of people would discuss. It was implied that the Predator alien in AVPR was a queen. So again, this is surprisingly, despite the fact that they say they're throwing out continuity, it does maybe somewhat kind of fit. That instead of how the queens are, they're different when they're born. I don't know, but in Alien 3 we saw the queen as a small chest burster. I don't know. I'm not sure on that one, but it is interesting the layout of where they had that little alien in the wall, and it at least shows it. Again, this means it doesn't contradict the first Alien in that obviously the alien that popped out of the chest of the engineer/space jockey in this film wasn't the first one. They already had the basic idea of the alien up on that wall, so they've had to have made it before. So, an interesting idea. Speaking of creatures, we have, of course, what I am calling the penis snakes, because that's what they look like. I'm sure somebody was watching a hentai when they came up with that one. I guess it's somewhat implied that those things are mutated from some worms, but I guess then they're alien worms on the ground. We don't see them again. They're only in that one little scene. It would have been interesting if they had planted their own things. And then, of course, there's also the black oil seemed to zombify the one guy, which I don't kind of get. Like, you're really left with what exactly does this shit do? It does seem like it's the black oil from X-Files when it comes to that. It does seem to be an end-all, do-all. It creates aliens. It can just plain kill you. It does whatever the script demands. And maybe you could argue then that fits in with what the space jockeys want. They want something that they can have a flexible approach to. But at the same time, it appears not to be 100% lethal, or you can create life with it. Which brings us back to the most head-scratching scene, in my opinion, of the entire movie, which is actually the opening scene, where we see the space jockey, or engineer if you will, sitting next to a waterfall, and I'm not sure if he's either the dumbest of the species and he decided to, I'm gonna have a nice little drink of coffee out by the waterfall out there. Gulp, gulp, gulp. Oopsie. This is the poisonous weapon of mass destruction. My mistake. Yeah, I'm not sure if that's what happened or he did some sort of sacrifice to create a species. Probably that. Probably the latter. Why? I mean, it looks like it was a prepped sacrifice, so his DNA then goes into the water, and I guess it's implied then that the jockey DNA gets mixed in with whatever proto-humans were and gives rise to modern humans. Again, the question kind of comes to why they think they did that. Was this guy kind of by himself? He just wanted to be the father of a new species kind of ideal. Maybe that's why he did it. Was it just to see what would happen? In which case, how did the space jockeys convince the other guy to go out and commit suicide, basically? I mean, it's not like we saw a couple space jockeys behind him with shotguns saying, "Drink the liquid." No. He goes out by himself, drinks it. Is this a religious thing? Which could be. I mean, you kind of get the sense that possibly the space jockeys could be religious. I mean, they have this giant head that they put in their facility. There was implied that there was more murals on their wall, and that's one of those things that when the Blu-ray comes out and the DVDs come out, I guarantee you there's some stuff hidden in those murals that get destroyed in the when they open up that chamber, which I'm sure there's probably some plot details and stuff that's implied in there. One, because it just seems like Ridley Scott decided to put, like, I'm going to put some of these answers that we didn't directly answer in the film, well, they're actually in there, but they got wiped out. Or else why have the murals in the first place and mention how they get destroyed? So I guarantee you, when we go back and you look at some of those, there's going to be some clues. Another interesting thing, though, that kind of comes up with the space jockeys that I noticed was that they mentioned a date. They said roughly about 2,000 years ago is when this facility went down, and they were basically, it appeared that they were planning on taking out Earth, which might tie into what else was going on 2,000 years ago. That's right around the time of Jesus. So are they implying maybe that the space jockeys had set, like, the space jockeys were the gods? All of a sudden there's a new group that is not worshipping them. Well, time to wipe out the species. There might be some implications there. I could be reading too much into that, but yeah, of course somebody's going to go, well, exactly 2,000 years from when they said they were going is 80 years after the birth of Christ. Well, they said it was a rough estimate about, so you can take a century. Sometimes people take stuff way too literal when it comes to film. Let's see what else we had. The snake creatures. Who I've already talked about that in a review. Of course, the stupidity of one. All right, I suppose I should talk about these two characters. The guy who I got confused at first, because we had the one Mohawk dude who turns out he's a geologist, even though at first he said he was kind of like security. Then he later goes, no, I'm a geologist. It made sense. Okay, I was willing to buy that he was just some sort of kind of hired muscle merc or part of the expedition crew member, but it didn't seem very much like a geologist. And if he was a geologist, why do he have those probes that could detect life? I mean, okay, I could kind of see why he would have the probes, but certainly acted a little crazy. And of course, was also the first one to be like, "Fuck this shit! This is an alien. I'm fucking leaving." You figure out of all the people that were gonna have the balls to stay, he would have been the one that would have been most, oh man, this is awesome, it's a fucking alien. The pussy. And then of course the biologists, which are trying to make, they're of course the two opposites. One's a really extreme hard ass, and the other is the nerdy guy. But in the end, they get together and they're stuck with each other. They're the odd couple. Yeah, whatever. They do kind of act stupid. I mean, but people do that. This is one of the other things people are trying to say. This is a major plot hole. Those two leave and they get lost. That happens all the time. And real expeditions, people get overexcited. They don't follow protocol. Especially when you're being led by Shaw and what's-his-face there. Those two seem like they were way too, how should I say, attached. Not attached, but they were supposed to be in charge of that expedition, but once they got inside, they were getting way too mesmerized by everything to really follow protocol. At the same time, there's also, to take it back to those two. So those two going and getting lost is reasonable, although you figure, I suppose you can use the excuse that the probes hadn't fully mapped everything yet, so there was some confusion as to where they were going. And then, of course, by the time the probes mapped and they could tell them where everything was, they are stuck. Yeah, because of the storm, they're stuck there. Alright, I can buy it. But, some people who are just way too picky, like with protocols and stuff for movies, like, okay, sometimes if we were to follow all the protocols, it would just drag out the film. Yeah, we could write it so that it would. You could probably write this movie with how you would actually handle everything and still have the plot follow the same beats and all that. The only problem is it would drag it out. You'd add like an extra 20 minutes just to get everyone to that same scenario. Oh, well, let's test everything for see if the oxygen is breathable. Or also, then one of the reasons they want you to have the masks off or the helmets off is so you can get better performances out of the actors. So they're not stuck in these big hot helmets. So it's clear to see the faces. So it is a contrivance for the media for them to take the masks and helmets off, so we can get the performances, so we can see their actions, their emotions. You have to sometimes have that suspension of disbelief so people can actually do the art. So if you want to know why the real reason why they had the helmets off for most of the time, so the actors can breathe, so the camera can get real close to the actors and actresses' faces. That's why. So I can suspend my disbelief for that. But the other thing is like, oh, well, they weren't marking anything, they weren't taking their time. And even I was like, there's writing on the wall behind you right as you go in. That should be the first thing they immediately go, oh my god, there's writing, because that's all you really need to prove that there's aliens. Or on another planet, we're the first people on this planet, we turn the corner and all of a sudden, look, lo and behold, there is writing. You figure they would have stopped right there. Or even just notice like carvings on the wall, like how it's obviously an artificial structure or artificially made. They would have been like, proof. But there is at least they're kind of implying that Michael Fassbender's character is kind of pushing them along, and that he might later on when Waylon wakes up and they take him in there. David said he's quite confident that he can speak the language and all that stuff. So it could be that he is reading all this stuff as they're going in, and he's reading the instructions and getting an idea. He knows exactly what to do because he's able to read the stuff on the walls. And I'm kind of picking up that that's what he was doing. Like he was realizing he rather quickly read everything that was he could see in there, and he knew what to hit to kind of force the expedition along to what he was programmed. His end goal is find a living engineer, so that Waylon can talk to him, and hopefully, for Waylon's sake, he is cured. They bring him back to youth or make him mortal. Which goes into all of which makes Fassbender's performance rather interesting, because you're not really sure what's up with the AI there. Now, obviously, Fassbender is supposed to be there as an example and answer questions about, hey, if the space jockeys created us, why'd you do it? And they had there's a perfect little piece of dialogue there. They go, where the one male, what's his name? I gotta look this up now, because this is gonna get me annoying. Yeah, Logan Marshall Green. Yeah, Logan Marshall Green's character Holloway. He's kind of upset that there weren't any aliens there, and Fassbender's David character comes in and he goes, well, if you. Because Charlie wants to know why they created humans. So Fassbender's character goes, well, why did your people create me? He goes, because we could. He's like, now imagine how would you feel if your creators told you that? So it's kind of going to the point of, sometimes species just do it to see if they can do it, and that ultimately might be the ultimate horror, is that we're just a byproduct of some little bygone experiment. Don't even have the dignity of having evolved on our own. In this way, it's and in this regard, Prometheus is extremely Lovecraftian. It really hits on. I think Guillermo del Toro had said, hey, "There's no point in me doing Mountains of Madness because Prometheus is pretty much at the Mountains of Madness." And although I've not read that particular work of Lovecraft, I've read enough Lovecraft to know this is really hitting his themes. That the kind of the horror of realizing how small we are and insignificant, and there's these horrors out in the galaxy and the universe that we think we want to know. Because Lovecraft always has this smart, rational scientist who wants to find answers, and then once he goes and starts probing the actual realities of the universe, it's too much for them to handle. And it's not as nice as they thought it was going to be. Humans are not this species that can really stand up or do anything, and they're in the actual bigger universe. And that's where, along with, of course, Lovecraft's ability to build atmosphere, that's where his horror comes from. And that's why I said, for some people that wanted to complain about the film, Alien was all tight and claustrophobic, and that's where the fear came from. Yes, in this, it's going for a cosmic horror, so you want to put everything on a bigger scale to show how small humanity is, how tiny and insignificant we are. That's the horror that it's going for. And of course, tentacles. Tentacles makes it very Lovecraft, especially giant tentacle monster. I also picked up, speaking of the giant tentacle monster and everything, there is certainly, the original Alien preyed on, the movie I should say, preyed on our fears of specifically rape. That was the underlying fear that they were using. Everyone that's worked on the production has said that that's what they were going for. They were purposely making a rape horror film. This is why they have the face hugger jumps on your face and then sticks its tube down your throat. You can see that in the design of the space jockey ship. Look at the holes they went through. What do those look like? Hell, even the head of the alien, it looks like a penis. And of course the alien itself kind of stalking in the corners, attacking you, doing horrible things. That one female character, the way she dies with the tail. Come on. They were really underplaying that. And that kind of sexual subtext is kind of still carried on over here. Although I think it's a little bit more, there's a little bit more of a birth subtext here, or fertility subtext. I mean, for one of the things, they make the point that as Shaw and Charlie are talking, it's brought up that Dr. Shaw is infertile. She can't have children. And of course, they then later have it that she gets pregnant with the little Cthulhu baby. And she's she has kind of that ultimate horror. I don't know. I'm not sure exactly what they were trying to go with that. The exact subtext they were going for, but she kind of. Well, actually, no. It fits with exactly what happens. She wants to be have pregnant, have children, much like she wants to find her answers. But then when she's given that, she's pregnant with a Cthulhu child, it kind of symbolizes her search for the answers. She found the answers, and they're horrifying. They're destructive. They could easily kill you. You want to not have them. So she wanted pregnant when she realized what it was. No, take it out, cesarean. Get it out and destroy it. Much like her answers to the creation of humanity. She thought she wanted them answered, but once she actually found the answer, she realized she didn't want to know it. Although, and speaking of the whole pregnancy and fertility thing, there's also an interesting dynamic going on here with Charlize Theron and Wayland. Now, yeah, of course, first of all, I'm still a little confused why they had to keep it hidden from. It appears only like 2 people on the ship only the 2 scientists didn't know that Wayland was on board, and he was the guy that was in the other cryo chamber. Why? I don't know. You could have said, I want to meet. All you had to do was say to them, I'm going to go along too. I'm going to stay in the cryo chamber. If you find them, then you wake me up, because before I die, I want to meet my actual makers. I don't think that the 2 archaeologists would object. I don't know. There's also, like I said, there's an interesting dynamic in that it gets revealed that Charlize Theron is his daughter, which I was kind of guessing at. They did do a nice performance with her, where at first you weren't sure what's her deal is and why she's there. What's the agenda? Now, I quickly did guess though that Wayland was on board as soon as they had David talking to somebody through in a cryo chamber. I was like, that's Wayland. He went on board the ship. He came with them. It's Wayland. Guess that immediately. And then there was also, of course, the other hint in that medical pod was only set up for male occupants. That means it was Peter Wayland's personal medical pod. But there's an interesting reveal is that she is his daughter. And that's kind of her whole purpose is, King has his reign, and then he dies. Which might also be subtext, or they're talking about, hey, Wayland is just like the space jockeys. Maybe they realized that their creation was starting to become advanced, and they wanted to wipe them out because they didn't want to be replaced by the next thing. So, of course, I think it's a perfect analogy that they're doing there. Here's someone who's just trying to artificially, stay alive or extend their life. And then the space jockeys are the same thing. They're trying to, maybe their whole thing is they're trying to control the evolution of other species so that no one ever comes about to really challenge their rule. They're overextending. Their empire has stayed around a little too long. It's time for somebody else to take over. And then, of course, there's also some interesting elements in that Wayland considers kind of David to be his son. Yet he controls his son. Again, goes kind of back to the space jockeys. He creates this life form, but he doesn't want it to really be free. He wants it only after the Wayland's dead will David be free of kind of his programming or having to follow his rules. So there's some interesting analogy to be found there, certainly. What else is there to hit on? There's really is a lot that you can talk about with this. I'm trying to figure out what are some good things to actually bring up and discuss now, because I'm sure you're going to hear other people talk about other things that they picked up in the film. I know as soon as I stop recording, there's going to be something I'm going to think of. Oh, why didn't I think about talking about that scene? Well, there's plenty of speculation. I'm sure there's even going to be some more possibly questions, possibly answers from when this comes to DVD, and there's a few deleted scenes. It's always a big up in the air. How canon are deleted scenes? And I can make an entire video on how should you consider a deleted scene in the canon of a film. My general rule of thumb is if it's a deleted scene and it was cut purely for pacing reasons, it slowed down the movie, you can probably then take it as being legit, like that actually happened. Now, as for the ending, well, we talked about already the ending with the alien, the proto-xenomorph, as I would call it. But I'm talking about the ending with Shaw and with David. It's interesting kind of how maybe David comes around and decides to help her in the end. That he kind of maybe realizes, hey, here's one of my creators, but she's treating me nice. And maybe that's a subtle message for hope, that they're kind of working together now. He's free of his, the oppression, and the person that he's working with now is now the person that treats him like a human being. She's the only character that constantly thanks him, doesn't kind of constantly refer that he doesn't have a soul, and even when she kind of refers to him being a robot, it's in a sympathetic manner, in a sympathetic manner, and you can kind of maybe pick up that that David really enjoys that about him, that he's being treated as a human, unlike how all the other characters treat him. And of course, that goes back to the space jockeys. If you were to treat maybe that'll be a theme if they do a sequel, where if you had treated them, the humans nice, at this point they would be very willing to work with you, stick in their own little spot area of space. But no, maybe in the sequel she's going to wind up turning the black oil on them. Obviously it works against them. But she takes one of those ships out to go back to their home planet. Because Fassbender has apparently learned how to fly one. I'm not sure how exactly, but evidence seems to indicate he can. I guess she reassembles his body? I mean, she took the body with him. I suppose we shall see. I would actually like it if they do a sequel. I would be interested in seeing what they would do. I'm not sure if they have it planned to do a sequel or if he intended just to leave it as a big question mark. I don't think the ship she flew off in is the one they find on LV-426. Which, by the way, is another thing they did indicate in this movie, that this is not the same planet. Alright, I will go. I just thought of something I was going to talk about, but I'm going to finish up this thought first. I certainly hope that we're going to see a sequel. There's certainly questions that need to be answered. It would certainly be nice to have some more answers on that. Although then again, like I said in my review, the big underlying theme of this entire movie is faith. And the message kind of really is, faith is what I choose to believe. It exists because I choose to believe it. And it doesn't matter if there's kind of other evidence and stuff. You acknowledge it, but you can still believe and choose to, sure, there's some interesting evidence, but I can still choose to believe in God. There's still questions you can shoot back. Okay, well, as Holloway, Dr. Holloway, Charlie there, says to Shaw after they discovered the aliens, like, well, you can get rid of that cross now. He's like, well, why? I was like, well, we prove they kind of created us. And he's like, yes. She's like, yes, but then who created them? Which is, of course, the natural progression you'd go from that. Is there still maybe a hand of God? After all, I said maybe these guys there's maybe possibly a slight religious theme to these space jockeys. So perhaps, if they created us for religious reasons, then that would actually, I suppose, support religious dogma or interpretation of some sort. Now, the one thing, though, that I wanted to mention that I did not, that I just remembered, was how lucky they were to find that particular spot. Because they kind of land on the planet, and as they're cruising by, they spot the facilities. And that's kind of literally a 1 in a million. They probably should have made it like this was a little bit more obvious. They could have done something like, I don't know, say like they scan the planet and they go, well, there's an interesting, they could have said we picked up there's a high level of electromagnetic region activity in this particular region. It might be natural, though. We can't say that it's not. And if it's the one area that looks maybe interesting, then okay, that's the area that will land in there. Then it's once you kind of narrowed it down to a smaller spot, it's easy for them to go spot this one particular canyon that has this WMD facility in it. They really needed something like that. Or they could have maybe just put a little detail on the drawings, like a weird cross, and they would have figured out, hey, this must mean it's at a coordinate system of some sort. It's going to be located at along these lines. Or it would help narrow down where the planet is, or where on the planet to search. That's the only thing they really needed to do, is narrow down a bit why they in this one particular spot on the planet. That's about it for now. Like I said, I'm sure I'm going to think of something. Tell me what you guys think, and of course, also tell me if you like this new format I've kind of working for the channel. Whether when I have a short review and then I get into my more long-winded discussions. Maybe we'll do this from now on, because it seems like a lot of people wanted to just have a quick review, and other people want to have, they enjoy me kind of rambling on about what I liked about the movie, about my interpretations of the film, all that stuff. So hopefully this new setup will satisfy both people, and maybe hopefully bring some more people onto the channel. So if you've listened to the entire review, thank you. Please subscribe as always, and I shall see you next time for actually I forget the next movie that comes out. I was so focused on this film. Anyway, whatever next movie I go to see, you'll hear about it. Signing off.